Welcome everybody to Cheese in Depth. I'm Michael Landis, and today we get to play with Vermont Creamery, one of my favorite people and creameries. We have a long history together. We started off working many years ago together. We did a little event in New Jersey, and I've always considered Adeline a very good friend of mine, and I'm very excited to have her join us today on our little talk. So, Adeline, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Michael. I'm outside in my backyard and it's a beautiful day, although the neighbor just called and said that there is a bear around our neighborhood. So if you see me running inside my house, just don't panic. It's just because, we live in the wildlife here in Vermont. I'm very excited to be joining you, Michael, and you all to talk about Vermont Creamery, to talk about cheese. I hope you all got your box of goodies and you have your display of yummy, delicious cow's milk cheese and goat's milk cheese. And we're going to spend, I think, 1 hour together. So you can hear an accent. It's because I'm originally from France. I grew up in a village in eastern part of France with more cow than people in Franche-Comté, and both grandparents cow dairy farmers. And when it was time to graduate from high school, I was wondering, what am I going to do? I knew that I was very appreciative of the work that farmers do, because that was running in my blood, and I also love great food. So I venture myself to the National Dairy School. Yes, there is such a thing in France. Think about the culinary school, but for cheesemakers, and I did that for 2 years, and then went on for a master's degree, which I wanted to learn English, and I thought, well, what a better place than America to go and learn English, and potentially they make great cheese over there. Let's see. And so I sent one resume. It was to Alison Hooper, the co-founder of Vermont Creamery, and she told me, yeah, come on in for an internship. And that was 16 years ago. So my first job was making cheese and wrapping butter, and today I'm very fortunate to be the president of the company. So Vermont Creamery has a much longer history than mine. It started in 1984, and the story is that Alison Hooper, the co-founder of Vermont Creamery, went to France. She was a young student. She wanted, similar to what I wanted to do, is go and discover a different country, and she ended up in France, ended up on a farm in Brittany, and on that farm they were making amazing fresh dairy products such as culture butter, crème fraîche, fromage blanc, a little bit of fresh goat cheese. And it was 1980, so it was new to her and certainly not popular in America. She tried those products and thought, oh my God, it's delicious. Like, one day I want to make those products. One day I want to bring those products to the American consumer. So she worked on the farm, came back to Vermont. She was a Jersey girl, but she said Vermont seems like the right place if you want to start a cheese business. Moved to Vermont, then she met her business partner, Bob Reese. He was working at the Agency of Agriculture for the state of Vermont. And the story of them two meeting is because Bob was working on a marketing campaign to celebrate the best restaurateur of the year, best chef of Vermont. And the chef happened to be French, and he wanted to do that dinner to celebrate his achievement and make his signature dish, which happened to be a roasted leg of lamb stuffed with goat cheese. And for that dinner, all of the product had to be coming from Vermont. I know in 2020, it's like, well, no big deal. Back in 1980, you couldn't find everything you wanted, especially gourmet food in Vermont. So someone directed Bob to Alison, saying there is this girl that she went to France. She has a couple goats. She lives in Vermont. I think you could ask her to make some goat cheese. Bob met Alison. Alison made some goat cheese for Bob, and then they served it at this dinner. And then chefs started to bring their business card and say, can I buy it from you? And they were like, well, we're not in business. We're not even cheesemakers. And said, no, I really want to buy that goat cheese from you. It's delicious. And so they looked at each other and said, okay, here we go. Let's start a cheese company. And so on the picture that Michael is going to show you, this is the farmhouse, the milk house where we started the business. It was at the farm where Alison Hooper lived and still live today. And you can see in the back is the barn. I think they had about 60 to 80 goats. It was the Hooper goats. And yeah, this is the little milk house where they retrofits the little house to add on a boiler, to add on a vat pasteurizer, and off they went. So the first cheese we made was fresh goat cheese, and we sold it to chef. We sold it in Boston, and little by little started to add more dairy farms, goat farm. And then once we ran out of goat's milk, we thought, well, what else could we do? And then Alison had the great idea to start making creme fraiche. So, starting on the hills of Vermont, and then soon that little milk house became too big, too small, I mean, and then we had to move to the creamery where we are today, in Websterville, Vermont, that is right in the middle of the state of Vermont near Montpelier. So today we've been over 35 years into business. We have about 120 employees. We still make our products by hand, and it's a lot of hands, rolling goat cheese, ladling bun bush, because the type of product we make is simply made out of craft, and not everything can automate it. So a strong team, a great team of, we call ourselves the Batter Makers. We continue to buy from local farm and buy all the goat's milk we can source here in Vermont, but there is not enough goat's milk in Vermont to support all the needs for our goat cheese. So we are also getting milk from 5 farms in Quebec, right across the border. Remember, we're way up north within the United States, and also 12 farms, goat farm in Ontario, Canada. So we have a great group of local family farm that we support, and also for the cow's milk cream that we buy it from St. Albans Co-op. That is an hour and 20 minutes north of the creamery. As you can see, knowing where the milk and the cream comes from, knowing how far we go, knowing how fresh it is very important to us, because to make great cheese, you got to start with great milk, and that's very important. Also, what consumer may not know, we're known for making great artisan cheese, goat cheese, cultured butter, or creme fraiche. What is not as known is how important our mission is to the business. And I think the next slide, oops, I'm skipping this one. The product we make, so I said cultured butter, you can see here. Also, creme fraiche, vanilla creme fraiche. We also make quark, fromage blanc, mascarpone. So all of that top line product is made of cow's milk. And then we have fresh goat cheese, which I'm sure you have tried. If you haven't, well, today's the day. Fresh goat cheese, logs. We also have goat's milk dips that we're launching, crumbled goat cheese. And then the last line of product is our aged goat cheese, which are very dear to my heart, because this is the first project that I got to work on at Vermont Creamery, how to perfect those cheese and actually build a separate little creamery to make them day in and day out. So a very broad portfolio. If you want to live off Vermont Creamery cheeses, from breakfast with spreading butter on your toast to, a little happy hours cheese board for dinner, we got you covered. So back to what I was saying about our mission. It's important to make great cheese, and I think we've been known for doing that for over 35 years. And it's as important for us to be known for how we use business as a force for good, and what it means for us to be a mission-driven company. So our mission is broken into 4 pillars on that wheels that Michael is showing. The first one is our earth, right? It's we live off the land. That's how farmers farm, and that's how we get milk to make cheese. So we're very committed to ensure that we focus on sustainable practices, on-farm practices, but also packaging. We want to make sure we minimize our impact. Um, we minimize our waste. Last year, 2 years ago, we transitioned all our plastic to a more sustainable substrate. You're going to see in the packaging that you receive, we use wood, we use clay, making sure that we don't fill the landfills, with packaging is very important to us. We also, at the creamery, closely monitor our input, how much electricity we use, how much wire we use, and more importantly, how we reclaim all that. And so that's very, very important for us to have a mindset in everything we do toward renewable energy, towards sustainable production, all the way to the farm. The second pillar is our hands, our people. Without cheesemaker, without an amazing crew of people, we couldn't be in business. And for us, it's important that our employees feel that not only they can thrive at Vermont Creamery, but we can help them also thrive in their lives. We care about equality, we care about living wage, we care about making sure that people can lift themselves through working in our business. And so that's another important part of, when you eat a cheese, you don't think of those things, but for us, we care about that stuff. Our supply, for us, it's pretty straightforward. It's really making sure that we help grow our dairy farming community, to make sure that they are thriving, to make sure that the price we pay for milk is fair, can sustain a family, can grow our industry, because I mentioned there is not enough goat's milk right in the state of Vermont, and we're very focused to ensure that we can, over time, add on more farmers, go dairy farmers, and help them get established, and then get sustained farming. And then the last but not least, it's our roots. We've been in business for 35 years. We are very embedded in the Vermont community. The Vermont Food Bank is across the street from our creamery. We have a very amazing community of cheesemakers in Vermont that we care and nourish. We're also part of an American Cheese Society community that is amazing. And for me, coming from France, I was so blown away by the passion of American cheesemakers that you got to meet through Michael webinar. It's so rich, and it's made of a lot of amazing people. And then the B Corp community, it's a community of leaders and businesses that are purpose driven, that wants to use their business as a force for good. And which lead me to that next slide. We always like to strive to think good, better, best. We want to be the best, and we also want to make sure that when we say we do the right thing, that we put ourselves to test. We have very high expectation for ourselves. And so in 2014, as we were seeing a lot of change in our business, growth coming, and also we knew that at some point we would transition the business. We thought it's important for us to really ensure that the legacy of our mission is preserved, and then we create a roadmap to ensure that this mission is here to stay for the long run. So in 2014, we became B Corp certified company. And what B Corp certified businesses are is it's a group of business that meet the highest standard of verified social and environmental performances. And verified is very important here. It means that we go through a very rigorous audit every 3 years, from governance to how we treat our employee, to our environmental impact, how we treat our suppliers, so on and so forth. So high level of environmental performance, public transparency, and legal accountability to balance profit and purpose. And that's what the B Corp community is about. And overall, the goal of this community and why we're so proud to be part of it is to accelerate the culture shift, to redefine success in business, and to build a more inclusive and sustainable economy. And so, as much as we're known for our cheese, I think it's important for us to also talk about our mission and our passion for this part of our business. What else should I talk to you about? I want to talk to you a little bit about our supply and where our milk and cream come from. I touched on that originally, but I think it's critical, especially right now, as we're going through so many challenges in our industry and in our farming community. It's very important to talk about the farmers, to talk about how products are made, and more importantly, how that product supports the local dairy ecosystem and economy in our state. So Vermont has less than 700 dairy farm left in the state, which is a drastic drop from I would say many years ago, even when I came in this country, where we had for sure at least 1,000 dairy farms. So there is 670 dairy farmers left in the state, and St. Albans Co-op is a co-op of 350 dairy farmers, and we've been working with them for over a decade. They collect the milk amongst their producers, turn the milk into cream, and then within a couple hours, we get that cream delivered at Vermont Creamery to make culture butter or cream. So very tight supply chain, very close partnership, and it's always important as we drive through the states to know that this farm and this farm and this farm is producing milk that's going to be making amazing butter. So that's where our cream comes from, to make the creme fraiche, to make the culture butter that we spoke about. And then for our goat's milk, a very important part of, I would say, our mission and also our story, we get milk from those 3 milk sheds that I spoke about: Vermont, Quebec, and Ontario, Canada. And what's very interesting is, as one of the pioneer of the goat cheese industry in this country, along with Mary Keane, with Cypress Grove, with Laura Chanel, and other, it's we started with creating a product that then generated a demand. So it started with a product. It's like, okay, why don't you try goat cheese? And then little by little, people started to really appreciate this product. To today, now, people are buying it on a weekly basis. And now what the work to be done is how to take that strong demand from consumer and turn that to not rebuild, but really advance a supply chain that is still very young. So lots of work to be done here to help support the dairy industry, and also talk about diversification. As cow dairy producers, some of them are thinking to transition their farm or to go into new type of activity. What we're talking to them is, hey, have you considered goats? If you're a great cow dairy producers and you have barn and you have infrastructure, why don't you start milking goats? We need more dairy farmers to be milking goats. And so we are on this campaign not only to ask consumers to consider goat cheese to put on their salad, but also trying to convert some of cow dairy producers to consider goats, and help them in that process, because it takes capital. You got to find a healthy herd, and also you got to help them with the technical support. So we're on a mission to put more goat dairy farm on the map in Vermont, and continue to support the demand for goat cheese. So that is where we're today, but I also want to make sure where we are going with our goat's milk supply. So Michael, What about starting to talk about the cheeses or anything I missed here in this very long introduction? I spoke mission, I spoke goats, I spoke about the cheeses. Anything else?
You know, it's so funny is I don't know how many times we've done this together, this presentation of being able to talk about that. But what I've picked up today was more of the families and more of the getting back to helping people. And I think that that's very appropriate for where we are today. And that is just really an amazing part of what you're able to do in your position. And you know, what people don't get to see is what you do every day. And I was fortunate enough last year to visit the creamery, and we walked through. You gave us a tour, and as we're walking through, you're talking to people first name basis. They're asking questions and just going through, and you could really see that everybody that works there, we're not only just employees, but also you guys have grown up together. You have been there for a while. You started in an apprentice and worked your way up. So, you know, it's really endearing when you walk through there and to see all the friends and family that you touch every single day.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. That means a lot. Yeah, I feel very fortunate to be part of this family and to have had the chance to be mentored by Bob Rees and Addison Hooper. I mean, they are visionaries, they are pioneer. Sitting in the room with them where we decided that we needed to take our capital and start a goat dairy farm, because in order for us to continue to grow our business, we needed to know, what it would take to grow the goat dairy farming industry. And every time I would bring them idea, they would say, "Yeah, why don't you try?" And I think they had this incredible, they knew sometime I would fail for sure, but they didn't even say it. It's like, why don't you go and try it and figure it out on your own? And that speaks to the level of trust, the level of leadership, and it's truly embedded in the business. So, in our core value, in how we empower people, how we are just willing to try and fail fast, and then just bounce back from it. And so, yeah, we have a great team, and we also have been fortunate to be started by two amazing people. Which, on that note, what happened to Bob and Addison, you may wonder, right? So in 2017, I remember sitting down with them and said, "Okay, we're out of storage for our cooler capacity. We need a new cooler. Our boiler is just falling apart, and so we can't pasteurize the milk anymore," and on and on and on and on. And then they say to me, "Adeline, stop right there. It's time for us to find you a new parent, and a new parent for the business that is going to invest in Vermont Creamery, that is going to take that vision forward and really nurture the mission and the brand and the people." So in 2017, this is when we transitioned the business ownership to Land O'Lakes, who's a farmer-owned cooperative out of Minnesota. And since then, it's been an incredible journey, because we got to continue to do what we know how to do best, which is make great cheese, which is to focus on our people and our mission. And at the same time, we get to be supported by a co-op that cares about the same value that we have, and help to fix those boiler and those cooler that we needed so much work on. So it's been a really great transition, and gave me certainly a deep level of appreciation for our dairy community and being owned by farmers. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to our people at Vermont Creamery. So that's the transition that we've been living through over the past couple of years. And Bob and Addison are doing really well. And I think you got to have Addison on the panel, Michael, what, couple weeks ago, with Mary Keene and Peg,
Yeah,
from
I brought
Calgary.
yeah, Allison and Mary and Peggy. Yeah, it
It's
was absolutely wonderful. You know, as you know, the day before we do a practice session like what we did with you, and I have to tell you that trying to get them to go a particular direction and through there was quite entertaining.
For, I would say, the next generation of cheesemaker, of, you know, cheese business leader, having this group of pioneers that kind of put it American artisan cheese on the map is so amazing. And you know, you've been part of it. You're part of this group of, you know, pioneer that started to be the storyteller, the distributor, the maker, the food writer, and they paved the way for us to then be in that position today. So
I know I started in the cheese business in 2005. So this is 15 years, but
yeah.
I've been teaching wine, beer, spirits, and food and beverage for over 25. So it was just a natural transition. And I really, I think, embraced the cheesemakers, the pioneers as friends, just like I consider you a friend as we go through here. You know,
Yeah.
it's a very small world in reality, and we spend a lot of time sticking together, helping each other. And this is my opportunity to get you out and show you around to people that normally don't get to see you very often. You know, in professional circles, this is something that we do with industry professionals. So this has been an idea of mine for a long time, to be able to bring you guys out, and so everybody can see you and everybody can hear you and everybody can do that. And I think that you know, you taking the time out of your day, because I know how busy you are, and I really appreciate that, and I'm sure everybody does as well.
Awesome. All right, should we eat some cheese?
We should. We should.
I think we should, right? Right.
I think we definitely need to do that. So,
All right. So we should, so the pairing, you know, Michael said 4 to 5 cheese. I mean, you can see the family. It's like we have 3 dozen kids at Vermont Creamery. So picking only 4 cheeses was probably the hardest challenge, more than getting set up on Zoom and doing the display here. It's like asking who's your favorite children, right? So 4 cheeses, we're gonna have fresh goat cheese, because we gotta start with what's pure and plain. It's like a fresh glass of milk. Then we're gonna move on to cremant, the cream of Vermont. Then we're gonna have a little bonne bouche. Yeah, you almost gotta be a French speaker to pronounce this one. And then we're going to finish with a cow's milk product called St. Albans. So I have the cheeses with me, and then what I'm going to do is walk you through those, and we're going to talk pairing. And please ask questions, because I'm talking a lot, and I want to make sure that any thought, any wondering, I can answer them as we go through. So the fresh goat cheese, what I thought we will do is, first of all, show you a trick. It's called easy peel. So you can open that little log of goat cheese, and I love to put it on a dish, because it's a simple cheese, but you can really impress people with it. So little log of fresh goat cheese, and what I wanted to show you is how to like up the goat cheese a little more with our friends from Fat Toe Farm. It's goat's milk caramel made in Vermont with milk from Ayersbrook Goat Dairy. So there is something called Goat Town in Vermont, where there is Ayersbrook Goat Dairy, which is the goat dairy farm of Milos Hooper, Alison's Hooper's son. There is also the Vermont Glove Company that is made with goat skin hives, and then Fat Toe Farm, which makes amazing caramel with the milk of Ayersbrook. So it's like this dulce de leche. It's very sweet and it's delicious. So you can drizzle a little bit of the caramel onto the goat cheese, or what I like to do is a cracker, whoops, fresh goat cheese, and then caramel on top of it. And it literally tastes like a s'mores. I'm serious. It's like you have your marshmallow, you have the caramel being like your chocolate, and then your graham cracker, which is your regular cracker. So fresh goat cheese on steroid here, people. So how fresh goat cheese is made while you eat and our delicious fresh goat cheese, either plain or with the little assortment I just made. So first of all, we take the milk that I spoke about, and we pasteurize it at a high temperature because it's a fresh cheese, so it's not aged. And so we pasteurize it at a high temperature to kill the bacteria that are in the raw milk. And then we're gonna put this fresh goat's milk into big tank. Think about if you have been in winery or cider places, you know, those like stainless steel tanks that are closed in. So we put the milk in there, and then we're gonna add cultures like bacteria, live bacteria that we carefully select, and that's the role of the cheesemaker, to make sure that they pick the right mix of lactic acid culture. And then we add it in the milk, and then it's the magic, the science, the work of the bacteria happen over 20 hours. And this is pretty long, and probably longer than most other goat cheese makers at scale, commercial goat cheese makers are doing. But it's very important to let those bacteria eat the sugar, the lactose in the milk, to turn it into lactic acid. And as this acidity builds up in the milk, it's going to make the protein of the milk come together, coagulate to then form a gel. And so that's how we go from a fluid milk into a tank to something that looks like a very fresh yogurt. And so 20 hours is very important for us because we want to slowly build that binding of the protein. We don't want to rush it because it's going to impact the texture of the cheese. Then the next day, we have this incredible, beautiful yogurt-like, and then we're going to take it gently and drain it into a cheesecloth. Very simple. We have big bags of cheesecloth that we press gently against each other, and what it's going to do is separate the whey that drips on the floor from the curd, the fresh curd. And once we get to that right texture, that right moisture into the curd, this is when we take the curd, take it off the bags, you know, cool it overnight into a little cooler, and then only we can take it and shape it into logs, fresh logs of goat cheese. Some of our goat cheese, we roll it in, you know, herbe de Provence, or like I have in here, blueberry with candied lemon peel or cranberry. Every single roll is, logs is rolled by hand. And so when you taste fresh goat cheese, the first thing is it shouldn't taste goaty. It shouldn't be tasting like the buck, or you are like next to the manure pit on the farm. It should taste really clean and really fresh. A little bit of salt, but not too much. And we usually add very little salt because we want the milk to shine through. We don't want to hide it. We want this pure freshness of goat's milk to come through into the cheese. Something also that I really love about our goat cheese is that there is such an incredible fluffy texture. You know, goat cheese shouldn't be goaty, number one, and number two, it shouldn't be sticking to your palate. It shouldn't be like you're chewing on, you know, cream cheese or toothpaste. It should be very fluffy. It should be very delicate, almost like melting of like, you know, cheesecake, you know, very, very light. And so that's very important for us to get that texture. And the way we do it is, again, we drain it in cheesecloth very slowly. We then make the logs by hand. It's very important for us that we get that amazing texture because once you put it in your mouth, it's like, oh my God, it tastes so good. So that's how goat cheese is made and should be enjoyed. I put it on a little piece of cracker here for a little appetizer. But really, goat cheese can be used on anything. And it's crazy to think that, wow, it took 40 years to get there. But, you know, you can now put goat cheese on pretty much anything. It's like topping on salads, on cheese board, you know, on pizza. I certainly feed my kids a lot of goat cheese, and they love it. So to go with this, Michael, I had picked a local spirits, Citizen cider. I thought, go Vermont or go home. So it's this cider company is a local producer located in Burlington, Vermont, northern Vermont. They've been in business. They started in 2010, and Unified Press is their flagship cider. It's a semi-dry cider. I mean, it's 90-degree right now here in Vermont, so I thought that would be just a perfect sip. It has some sweetness, which balances the acidity of the goat cheese. So that's what I'm drinking right now with our fresh chef. What do you think?
Well, I think that's a great choice. I have been drinking Sierra Nevadas since the 70s when they came out, and it's been always my go-to when it comes to fresh goat cheese. It's a pale ale that has some hoppiness to it, not too much, but what it does is it brings out more of the butter of the goat cheese. And that tanginess, that little lactic acid, it kind of blends in, and so you get a little bit of the grain that comes out. So you get the nice grain of kind of like biscuit, you get butter in there, and then just a little bit of tang. And so I've been pairing that for a long time. I just love that pairing. And as for what I'm going to do with the others on this is that on my board I have blueberries, because you put blueberries in it, and you generally use a little bit of bourbon in that. But I also have these Effie's, their cakes, and
Oh my God.
that is really for something that you need a little bit of extra oomph, and also we need a little stability. So I use the Effie's Oatcakes on that, and then I dig into a little bit of the cheese, just like you did, and I kind of smear it on there a little bit, and then get a couple little blueberries going in. Hopefully they don't roll off too far. And then, of course, honey. This keeps it
Honey.
all together. And so this is Savannah bee honey, 80% pollen count. Oh my God, this is just amazing on its own. So you can just see that that honey and that together, just magnificent.
And how pretty it looks. It looks like a hors d'oeuvre that is super fancy, and it's like, no, it's a cracker and a goat cheese. But it's a
Mm.
really good cracker and a really good goat cheese, right? Yeah. And that, when people say, oh, I don't like goat cheese, I mean, I'm like, oh, then I'm on a mission to convert you. So the first question I always ask, like, you don't like goat cheese because you had a bad piece of goat cheese before? Tell me more, number one. And then number two, to convert people that supposedly don't like goat cheese, I always use honey as a trick, right? Once you put this very dense honey and sweetness on top of this fluffy and acidic goat cheese, you really like, oh, I didn't realize. I thought goat cheese was goaty. I thought it was strong. I thought it was hard. And it's like, no. So
It matters the quality of everything. That
mm,
the blueberries, they need to be fresh, not frozen. Your crackers, they need to be handmade. These are Effie's handmade, so they're really just so fresh and just delicious. And then of course, anytime that you're using the honey, anytime you can get a whole comb, that's always a nice little bonus and
yeah.
through there. So
When we were developing, so we make our fresh plain, which is the cheese that I recommended, but we have one with blueberry, it's white blueberry, candied lemon peel and thyme. We have another one that is smoky pepper jelly, and we wanted to do a honey goat cheese because we so often teach about put honey into your goat cheese. So we thought at some point we're going to need to come up with this combo. But finding the perfect honey and making sure that it's not cut, with, blended with imported honey from this and that, and being able to source honey at scale, where we could use it in the mix of our product with, the paperwork to ensure that it's pasteurized and check all the the check mark, but also a honey that we know where it's made, the producer, and really trace it all the way to the farm. It took us a year, believe it or not. And then we were tasting honey, and then honey powder versus real honey. It's a big difference. And we're like, we have to stick with liquid honey. It's so much better. It tastes like the real deal, and that's so important to us. But we always tell the story on how obsessed we were for a year to find the perfect honey to blend with our cheese. Oh, yeah, that's Vermont Creamery in a nutshell. All right, so should we move on to the next cheese?
What would
What
you
do you
like to
think?
do?
The next one I think is cremant.
Okay, let's do crema.
Let's
There
do.
we go.
Okay, so cremant. So as you can tell by its name, cremant means the cream of Vermont. And why we created this cheese? So we first pioneer geotrichum rinded cheese. And when you look at your piece of bun bush, you look at your cremant, you're like, you look at the rind, it's similar. It's like wrinkly, a little weird, very different than I would say penicillium soft ripened cheese, such as a brie, a camembert. And so we wanted to make sure that we create a cheese that brings people into the world of geotrichum rinded cheese. Like, make sure that we have a cheese that is approachable, where people will grab it because it doesn't look as funky and weird as, for example, a bun bush. Try it and understand how amazing geotrichum rinded cheese is, and then go and explore the more complex cheeses we make. So we thought goat's milk with cow's milk to just tone down the goatiness, and then let's add cream to it because you can't go wrong with fats. And so we called it a double cream, so that it's pretty high level of fats and cream content in that product. And it also has 90% cow's milk and 10% goats. So you probably got your crema in this little plasticky clamshell, and you probably opened the clamshell and said, okay, let's get to the cheese. I want to talk to you about packaging. Why packaging is so important as a cheesemaker is because, let's be real, we work so hard to make that cheese, and farmers work so hard to produce that milk. But once the cheese leaves the creamery, and we're in northern Vermont, then you lose control over your baby. And so then it gets through trucks, pallets, distribution, cross dock in another warehouse to the distributor, then to another warehouse, to at some point to the warehouse of the customer, and then only it gets to the consumer. And so if you make a great cheese, but then it has a packaging that is not sustaining all that stress that you do through the transportation and supply chain all the way to retailer, you basically are ruining the work, I would say. So we spent years and years to perfect that packaging, to perfect that protection for our cheese, because we want to make sure it's not only perfect when we ship it from Vermont, but it's also perfect when people buy it at the store. So it has a little bit of opening in the front. If you take the sleeve, you're going to discover that it has openings also on the side. And believe it or not, the opening depth has been measured and researched deeply. It also has those little dots on the bottom that lift up the cheese to create some breathing, to make sure that the cheese rind is not suffocating, is not melting. Anyway, I'm maybe going too far on packaging design and engineering 101, but it's so important to the cheese. And those cheese, by the way, you cannot wrap them in cellophane. It's going to kill the rind, and then it's going to be super ammoniated, and then it's gonna taste really, really bad. So now that you know everything about cheese storage and cheese packaging, no cellophane. Pay attention to the condition of your cheese, and if you don't eat all that cheese and want to save it to use it again or taste it again, put it, I would say, in a Tupperware. Put it into either back in its clamshell or in a little Yeah, Tupperware where there is breathing room all around. Close it because your fridge is gonna stink. Um, but do not wrap those cheeses in cellophane. You're gonna kill it. All right, so let's dive in. Wow, that's a soft cremant. That's all that yummy fat in there. So you can see how yellow it is compared to the fresh goat cheese that you tried. And the reason being is it's because of that cow's milk and that creme fraiche we put into the curd. So why don't you try it, taste it, and then I'm gonna tell you how it's made. Wow, mine is strong. Oh, it's good.
I've
Very
been
soft.
looking forward to this all day long.
Mm,
This is such a beautiful cheese. You know, you can see the creaminess right around the edging here. It's got
yeah,
a beautiful rind on it. Mmm.
it is good. It is really good. And you know what I like about cremant is, you know, if you buy it young and it's still, you know, hard and not hard, but it's hold together, um, you're gonna get this this fluffiness into the cheese. It's gonna be very mild, you know, and that was on purpose to keep that cheese mild, so it's again approachable. But then as you let it age and hold on to it a little more, it developed this complexity, this sweetness and hazelnut that is from the cow's cream. A little bit of it, it gets saltier because the rind condense and the paste condense, and then you get umami taste. And then, you know, again, what I love so much about cheese is it's a living and breathing thing. And so from young to age, it's going to evolve and surprise you with more and more aromas that develop throughout, I would say, its shelf life. And then it gets super strong. And if at some point the cheese tastes like too ammoniated, like you need a spoon really to just eat the cheese, this is when I would say it's time to retire that cheese. And that's why packaging is so important, is to protect the cheese for as long as possible through its shelf life. So how we make that cheese, it's a similar process, I would say, to the fresh log, other than the selection of the bacteria we put to culture the milk is different. We add some yeast in addition of starter culture, and we also add a little bit of mold into the milk. After 20 hours, we have this great fresh curd that is formed. Then we're going to put it into cheesecloth, like I described for the fresh chèvre. And then we let it slowly drain. And sometimes it takes 24 hours, sometimes it takes 28 hours. It really depends on the season. Every single one of our cheese, we don't standardize the milk. That means as milk component fluctuates throughout the year. So in the summer, there is very little fat and protein in the milk, versus during the winter, it's very rich fat and protein content in goat's milk. You know, we have to adapt as a cheesemaker constantly. We start with a milk that varies, and then we have to make sure we know our cheese technology and recipe to constantly make sure we tweak it to always have a consistent cheese as consumer enjoy it. So sometimes it takes longer than other day to drain the curd, and then we shape that curd. It's very soft, so we use a form with a little hole in there, and then we will put the fresh curd in it. We slather it, smash it, and then gently take the forms out, and then we have those beautiful cremants that are on racks. Then what happened is we're going to put those cheeses then in aging rooms, and we have 12 of those, and each one is designed with a temperature, humidity, and ventilation specific to that cheese. So for example, we have an aging room that is designed for the cremant, and we control the temperature, we control the humidity to ensure that we create the perfect environment for that yeast that we put it in the milk originally to start growing from inside out to create the rind. So it's a simple process on how you go to a fresh goat cheese to an aged goat cheese is really by adding yeast and mold into the milk, and then by putting that cheese into a affinage, environment to let the rind develop. And I use the fancy and technical word of geotrichum. That's the type of yeast we use to grow this rind. And we like to call ourselves as batter maker, but also wrinkle growers. That's our job. Our job is to let this geotrichum develop on the surface of the cheese, and how we measure that we have a rind that is where it should be is by looking at the wrinkles, making sure those wrinkles are wrinkly, that they are attached to the cheese, that they are small but not too small. And that affinage cycle takes about 10 to 15 days, again, depending on the seasonality and the richness of the milk. And so every day we look at the cheeses. Every day we have to flip those cheeses to make sure the rind develops on the top, on the bottom, on the side. And it's a very delicate work. And I would say it's something that is hard to teach. We don't have a geotrichum rind onboarding curriculum at Vermont Creamery. The way you learn it is by looking at those rind, looking at those wrinkles, growing day after day, and start building your know-how by observing and by knowing when the wrinkles are good enough or great enough to be turned into a cheese that is ready to be packaged. What do you think of the cheese, Michael?
Oh, well, I've been waiting and waiting. I've been so patient.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Eat the cheese.
You're doing a great job. Thank you. I really love that. So, there's, of course, that creaminess, the extra butter cream that's in here. And there's that wonderful tanginess. This is a cheese that everybody could love. It's just so nice. So yeah. Putting this on a very simple little flatbread. It's a sourdough with rustic bakery, and it's rosemary and olive oil. And so the rosemary on this, but there's another part that I add to it is Taste Elevated has candied oranges, which rosemary, cream, butter.
Can't go wrong. Can't go wrong. Well, that sounds like a great pairing too. So we have 2 more cheese to go, and if you're at home and already had ate all the cheese, I have no problem with that. Usually people are like, we're gonna get going, we're gonna eat the stuff while you talk. So
all right, well, what are you drinking with it?
Oh, I'm still on the citizen cider. However, I wanted to show you, my dad brought me this amazing bottle of Crémant du Jura, and I thought maybe I should open that to just make sure my French heritage comes through here. But you know what? I'm Vermont all the way, so I'm still citizen cider. What about you?
A little Prosecco. I wanted something sparkling. I wanted something a little sweet with the oranges and with the rosemary and the butter and the cream. A Prosecco. You need something to help clean out the palate just a little bit because it's so big. But yeah, this makes it really, really simple. You don't need, to get crazy with this.
No.
It's such a great, easy to pair cheese that, this is easy. So a little Prosecco.
That's perfect. And when people ask me, people are so intimidated by cheese, by wine, by pairing, it feels still such a big deal. It's like, just get over it. Those cheeses are super approachable. And if you don't know what to pair, pick a sparkling wine. Pick a Prosecco. You can't go wrong with goat cheese. You pick a light, crisp wine or sparkling wine, and you can pair that wine with all the cheeses we put it on the plate here today.
Well, what I always tell people is that if you start off with a wine or a sparkling or a beer that you love and the cheese that you love, even if they don't work perfectly together, you still have a great wine, you still have a great cheese, so you're going to be okay. Nobody's going to go to jail,
It's like marriage, right?
Exactly.
That sounds so similar. All right, so the next cheese we're gonna try is called Bon Bouche, and as you can see, it has this beautiful little wooden crate. Again, very well designed, so the cheese can, continue to age. The plastic wrap has micro perforation, so it acts like a micro cave because the cheese is gonna still age while we ship it. Again, look at those beautiful wrinkles. They make me happy. So Bon Bouche hand ladled cheese, 100% goat's milk cheese. Why is it gray? Well, because we sprinkled salt and ash on the surface of the cheese after we had ladled it, drain it into little forms, no cheesecloth on this one, but hand ladled in little colander type forms. And then when the cheese has drained for, sometime it takes 24 hours and sometime it takes 48 hours to drain. Again, back to the milk seasonality. So we sprinkle salt and ash after the cheese is unmolded. And then we age the cheese for 14 days. First, we take Bon Bouche and put it into a séchoir, a drying room where it's like high wind, low moisture, and high temperature. And the goal here is to dry the surface humidity of the cheese. Think of this cheese as it's young. It's like a panna cotta. It's very, very fragile, very, very soft and humid. So we need to drain that moisture out and then get the geotrichum rind to start growing. And so 3 to 4 days into the aging room, and then after that about 7 days into 3 to 4 days into the drying room, and then the aging room after that. And again, it feels very scientific, very specific, but again, wrinkles are super hard to grow on cheese, and so we have to be very meticulous about controlling the environment to develop this amazing rind. So the center is very soft and almost crumbly like fresh chèvre. And then you can see that the surface is very, very wrinkly. The paste is very soft on the outside. It's because the cheese, the rind continue to develop, then breaks down the paste underneath the rind that creates that cream line. But once you try it, you're going to see that Bon Bouche is a little salty. It's very mild. It has, goatiness to it, as it should be. And the texture is like this panna cotta. It's so fluffy. It's like a mousse. And again, it's due to the fact that we are hand ladling the cheese. Yum.
So this cheese, you and I worked together in New Jersey for a grand opening of a cheese shop. And that was the first time that we had met, and you had driven down to be able to come down to be able to see it. And we did a bunch of pairings with your cheeses. Oh, look at that. You can see how much cream is coming off of here. Oh, this is just, this is just something that I eat all by itself. I don't share this with anything else,
That could get you in
honestly,
trouble.
This is just it by itself.
Yeah, and it's the hardest cheese to make at Vermont Creamery. That's why we have a little soft spot for Bon Bouche, which means good little mouth in French, if you wonder. So the last cheese, last but not least, this is called St. Albans.
Hang on.
Oh, okay.
One last thing.
Oh.
So we pair this
What are you
up.
drinking?
Yes, you can't forget drinking. French, you should be drinking. All right.
Yeah, I am.
All right. So with this, I went with a Irish red. I want a lot of maltiness to come out on this, but I don't want it to be like a porter or a stout. I want some sweetness. And so this is a local brewery. This is 81 Bay. They do a really nice Irish red. And so that's my choice of drink.
I'm going to have to try. That's bold. Usually, like no red wine, no porter or dark beer. Good? He's dancing. I think that means it's good.
It's like having a toasted bread with this, that maltiness, the toastiness you get off of a really nice French bread that's been toasted all the way to the end. It's just got a really nice balance. There's some nice sweetness on here. You know, just simple and easy.
I'm gonna have to try. I like to try new thing. That's an unusual pairing. That's risky, but it feels that it's the right one. So.
Well, that's the thing. Pairing, drinking, it's like love. It's in the eye of the beholder.
All right, can I go last but not least? It's called St. Albans cheese. It's in this beautiful little crock. And the name comes from the town of St. Albans, where we source our cream from. This is a cow's milk cheese, and it's, again, has geotrichum rind on it. What I love about this cheese is you can bake with it. It has this, you know, terracotta crock, and you can put the cheese in the oven for a couple minutes and then use that as a fondue for 2 or as a fondue for 1. In my household, it's like a single serve, this piece of cheese, but you know, we are a cheese geek family. But again, if you slice this cheese, it's very unique. If you come to Vermont Creamery and go into the aging room where St. Albans is being aged, it smells like sweet corn and Granite Smith. It's crazy. I mean, you walk into the room and the smell is like, oh my God, where is that coming from? It's coming from the cheese and it's coming from the milk. So very aromatic cheese, cow's milk cheese. And as you can see, this one is a little bit crumbly because it's still, I would say, pretty fresh. If you hold on to that cheese, I would say for 20, 30 more days, the paste is gonna break down, and then you're gonna have something that you can really spread and enjoy more like as a very soft spreadable cheeses. And again, put that in the oven, serve it with crusty bread. It's an amazing cheese. And again, it's, you know, it's a packaging that you can save. I have people use it as a candle holder. You know, I make crème brûlée in those little crocks. So just a lovely, approachable cow's milk cheese with a geotrichum rind on it. So why don't we try this? Wow. Mine is very young. I get the sweet corn, the fresh, fluffy texture. It's lovely. Wow, a little bit of hazelnut, a little acidity, not too much. You can taste the salt.
This is just such a nice flavor. It's very simple. It's got some earthiness to it. It's really got a really nice balance. So I'm going back to where you started, and I'm going with a cider. Right? So this is a Tennessee cider. This is a Gypsy Circus Cider Company, and this is their Rain Dancer. And this is an amazing semi-dry cider with this, which is, you know, this reminds me a little bit of a French camembert or a Normandy camembert.
Yeah. Yeah, it has, I agree. It has this sweet corn, buttermilk, acidity coming from the lactic cheese, and a little bit of yeastiness that comes from the geotrichum or the billinens that will be in true camembert, French camembert. Wow, it's been, you know, Michael, it's my first time doing this, and I'm so glad that I did it. I get to, you know, enjoy a beautiful cheese board. I had some great cider. My kids have been locked down in front of the TV. They're like, Mom, we want to go have snack with you. I said, no, you can't come. It didn't rain and the bear didn't show up. I think we call this a win.
It did. Yeah. Yeah, I got lightning, thunder, 2 dogs underneath my feet. So it was a little chaotic for a couple seconds there. You know, here in Tampa, usually if we get an ounce of rain, we lose power somewhere along the line. So we got really lucky and everything worked out really well. And It's so nice to sit down with you. It's been way too long, and I hope that we can do this again on some more cheeses, because you know, it's always fun to sit down and try different things, and these pairings are virtually unlimited. We didn't even put
Right.
any charcuterie in here.
Oh
So,
gosh, and chocolates?
and chocolate. I do have some chocolate somewhere in here, you know, and I have some nuts in here. So, you know, we could just spend all day playing with the food.
Yeah, yeah. It's been lovely. It's been lovely. Well, thanks so much for having me. Talking about cheese and what we do and the importance that, not what we do, but those cheese represent to our community and our dairy, ecosystem is so important. And the more people know where their food comes from, I think the more we're gonna come back and thrive as a food system. So thanks so much for having me, Michael. It's been a pleasure, and cheers to you all, and happy American Cheese Month, right?
American Cheese Month, we're finishing it
Cheers
up.
to
And
American Cheese Month. Yeah.
yes, cheers to you. And
Thank you.
you're welcome. So everybody else, I want to let you know that she has left us with a really great video at the end here. So I'm going to play that so you can see some of the history and hear it from Allison and Bob themselves. So that's really fun. The rest of the month and into June, there's more American Artisan, and also be bringing some English cheesemakers onto the screen in June and July. So looking forward to that. You guys have a great night, and Adeline, thank you so much. Love you, and we'll see you again soon. And I'm going to turn it over to this wonderful little video for us.
Merci. Bye-bye.
The business is like having a child. When the business is young, you nurture it, you're with it all the time. It's really an extension of yourself. Like our children, the business grows up, and hope that you have instilled all the values that they learn and they carry them forward, about how we are in the world. I want to make sure that we give back and we leave the world better for our grandkids than it is today.
Vermont Creamery was born in 1984. We were a startup company specializing in the rebirth of the Vermont cheese industry. We were the first dairy goat operation licensed in the state of Vermont.
So the idea of starting the business came from a request from a chef. For a dinner, all the products had to come from Vermont.
We started talking about the potential of specialty cheeses at the dinner and launched our company right there.
Chefs, they love their French cheese. They said, if you can make a product that we like and it's as good as what we can import from France, we'll buy it from you.
I learned to make cheese as an intern in France. I loved it, so I followed my passion to Vermont. 30 years ago, Americans didn't even eat goat cheese, and here Bob and I thought with our $1,200 each, we would make that happen.
So here we are, 33 years into the business, and today people really want to know where the food is coming from. What are the animals eating? How are the employees being treated? What are we doing in our business that contributes to the community, or we don't damage the environment, or we're thinking about the future generations?
We're very, very transparent, and we have key measures that are important to the creamery. We go over these key measures. How much water we use, how much trash we're putting in the landfill, the milk quality, all the things that are important to Vermont Creamery.
Vermont Creamery has developed over the years its own savoir-faire. You don't learn that at school, you don't learn that in the book. It's building your experience and your know-how through making those cheeses day in and day out, and basically mastering the craft of cheesemaking.
We pride ourselves in producing the highest quality milk possible, which produces the highest quality cheeses possible. We embrace the notion of terroir, taste of place. It's right here, all around us. I think it starts with the soil. Take care of your land. It'll take care of you. It'll take care of your animals. Animal well-being and quality of life is keystone to any dairy operation. They have to be healthy. They have to be comfortable. We are breeding for an animal with the highest genetic potential possible. Our youngest generation is our best generation.
Vermont Creamery is a really small piece of a larger movement to bring food to tables in a responsible way.
The future of the Vermont dairy goat industry is really embedded in the mission of our company. Vermont Creamery is playing an active role as a leader in reviving the industry.
When you make great cheese like ours, you not only have to have a great recipe and also a great company, you gotta have the talents behind it that are passionate about the product you make. And this is what makes our cheese so great. Not only the milk, the recipe, but the people behind it. And they are so important to the success of this company. Can't thank them enough for the hard work they do every day.
We're making cheese to make us happy. And we're making cheese the best that we can and to be better than the last cheese we made. That's, at the end of the day, what we're doing, is we're really just letting the milk tell our story. Sorry, I'm getting all teary-eyed.
It is amazing to me how much pleasure people get from eating our products in a way that brings people together nutritiously and joyfully. It's always so welcome to bring cheese and share with other people. The cheese is really our mouthpiece. They have to speak for us. We want people to look to us as leaders in our community. We have an obligation to affect people's lives.